To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejados de las
This here's a wild ride in the wilderness.
Doors change.
Well, I got my booster today. Nobody likes you, Booster. You know what that's from?
No.
Jingle All the Way.
Why is that popular again? I remember seeing it when it first came out and was like, it was all right. But now it's I don't know. Maybe it's because it's on Disney Plus. I don't get it.
Well, I mean, you're not a millennial, are you?
No, I'm a Gen Xer.
Okay, yeah. I mean, as a millennial, I think it meant more to us because we were prime Christmas age when it came out, and I remember loving that movie, and that's like a Christmas staple for me. So I think it means more to millennials, and now that it's on Disney Plus, it's more readily available. So that's probably why.
That must be it, because A Christmas Story is that movie for me. We always watch the marathon on TBS, and now that we don't have cable anymore because cable's dumb, I bought it and I just put it on repeat. I bought the digital. I'll just put it on repeat. So
yeah, my parents always had cable, and we used to do that same thing on Christmas Day, because it just played over and over on Christmas Day, and I would do that same thing where I would just turn it on as soon as I woke up, and it would just be playing in the background with everything that we were doing. But that's another one that I love. I've been watching, and this is how I know that I found the one. I've been watching The Grinch almost every night before I go to bed, because Kristen likes The Grinch, and I like The Grinch too. So she's pretty great.
Now, which version?
The Jim Carrey version, obviously.
Oh, okay. Obviously.
And anybody who knows me and is family knows why that's a big deal, because I love The Grinch and the Jim Carrey version. So anyways, back to Disney. It was a decent Disney conversation just now, but we are going to talk about some Genie Plus action, and we're going to kind of tentatively plan out a Disney day with Genie Plus and kind of how we might be utilizing that. Now, what's Genie Plus, you ask? Genie Plus is it's actually kind of a planning system that Disney came out with, that is a part of My Disney Experience. But it's also a way of utilizing the lightning lanes at Disney World. What are the lightning lanes, you ask? Well, the lightning lanes are the Fast Pass lanes, only with a different name. And there was a slight change to everything, and we'll kind of go over that. I'm still not 100% sure I know everything, so I'm sure Bryan is going to be able to fill in some gaps, and I'll just kind of let him talk at some point. But I have the list in front of me right here, and the first park that we're going to be talking about is Epcot. So Epcot, I didn't even mention. I'm just going a million miles an hour. So we've got Genie Plus Lightning Lane attractions, which are regular attractions that if you pay for Genie Plus, you can get fast passes or lightning lanes for. And Genie Plus, I believe, is $15 to buy.
That is correct, sir.
But then there are also fancy rides, which is what Molly from All Ears says. But these are called individual lightning lanes, and these are a separate fee from your Disney Plus fee, I've already done that a couple of times, from your Genie Plus fee. And these are, you don't have to have Genie Plus to buy these individual Lightning Lane rides. So you can go to Disney and not have Genie Plus and still buy Lightning Lane for those rides. But at Epcot, the Genie Plus Lightning Lane rides are Disney Pixar shorts, Frozen Ever After, Journey into Imagination with Figment, Living with the Land, Mission Space, Soarin' Around the World, Spaceship Earth, Test Track, The Seas with Nemo and Friends, and Turtle Talk with Crush. Now, the individual Lightning Lane attractions are Frozen Ever After and Ratatouille Adventure. And I do believe Ratatouille Adventure is a virtual queue as well.
That's Remy's Ratatouille Adventure.
Oh, I'm reading this list straight from Disney, and all they have is Ratatouille Adventure.
Wow.
So, yeah. They didn't put Remy's in front of it. They just said Ratatouille Adventure. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Remy's Ratatouille Adventure is also a virtual queue. And we'll get into that later. But also Frozen Ever After, you noticed it was on both lists. I guess they're and Bryan told me this today. They're including that into the included Genie Plus list up until January 3rd. Is that correct, right, Bryan?
That would be correct.
Great. Okay, so now we kind of know the list of what's what. Kind of go a little deeper into how to utilize Genie Plus. So basically, the way that they've done this is Genie Plus is like a virtual version of old Fast Passes. And I think they did this because people complained about how having to plan so far in advance, like 3 rides that you wanted to go on, like almost 60 days in advance. Like people were complaining about that. Some people, I mean, I loved it, but so this is kind of like the virtual way of appeasing both people, where like you're able to do everything on your phone, but you kind of have the same rules you had with old school Fast Pass, whereas you can make one Fast Pass reservation, but then you've got a certain window before you can make another one, or once you've used the one that you currently have, then you can make another one. And I believe the rules are, like I said, as soon as you use the first one you've made, as soon as you tap or the second tap that you've done, you can make another one, or you've got 120 minutes until your next one is used, or until you can make a next one. So it's kind of like whichever one comes first in that situation. And so that's the regular Genie Plus rides. You pay $15 for that, and then you're able to make Fast Passes. And then you've got the fancy rides, which anybody can make those. And it's kind of like the way that they've explained it is that it's like a movie ticket, where you go in and you decide, you see what's open and you decide what time you want to ride, and then you buy it. And then there's no real, you can go in and cancel it, but there's no real like moving it around or anything like that. That's kind of like the time that you've chosen. And again, anybody can do that. You don't have to buy Genie Plus for that.
Right. So I wanted to back up just a little bit. There's Genie, which is the planning system that is built into the My Disney Experience app. From all I've seen with Genie, you and I and those of you listening, we don't need that, because it seems to be built right now to just upsell. So it's like you walk into the park and it's going to say, hey, let's go ride Space Mountain or something. It'll send you somewhere. You'll go on that ride, and then it'll, for the next 2 hours, send you to a restaurant or to a shop, or, make you kind of delay for a while. And it's, no, You don't want to do that. So I've been telling everyone I've been helping that not to use Genie. So that is a free service that they've offered up on the app. As you said, the $15 Genie Plus, it can be used. The one thing I wanted to add with the 120-minute rule is that you can kind of stack 2 at a time. And the way that is that, let's say you can, if you're staying on property, you can start booking them at 7 a.m. And that's a huge advantage over the people staying off property, because some of these will book up right away. Specifically, the Rise of the Resistance type of ride, and the Avatar Flight of Passage, those are going to book up immediately. So you're going to want to get up that morning, 7 a.m., and book that ride. Now, 120 minutes or when the park opens. So if you're going to Animal Kingdom, I believe it opens at 8 o'clock normally. You're going to be able to book at 7 o'clock, and then you walk in at 8 o'clock. You can book your next one, regardless of whatever time that Flight of Passage, or, well, it wouldn't be Flight of Passage, but regardless of whatever time that first one you booked is. So the interesting thing with that is that if you were to book one at 7 a.m. and then you can book another one at park open, say at, let's go to Magic Kingdom, and you've booked one for Jungle Cruise at 3 o'clock. And then you get there and the park is opened at 9. You can now book one for, say, 9:15. And then you can continue using it until you get to that 3 o'clock. And once you hit that 3 o'clock, you go back to having just the one. So it used to be that you could kind of stack all day long, and maybe you'd be running 2, 3, 4 different Genie Pluses that you're stacking on top of each other and getting a lot of lightning lanes, but they've closed that loophole. So if you have one, as I had explained, and then you get to that 3 o'clock point, you're done. You're going to have just the one rolling again at that point. Now, all those individual lightning lane selections, as they like to call it, which is way too long of a name, and I'm going to go with Molly for the rest of the show. Fancy rides do not count as part of the Genie Plus selections. They don't fall in that 120 minutes. They don't go up against any of the Genie Plus selections you may have made. So one of the tricks I've seen Molly do is plan that fancy ride around the time you may have to invoke that 120-minute rule. So if you're, like you were talking about, you want to go ahead and hit as much as you can in the morning, you can use Genie Plus that whole time and hit what you can. But you're going to need to, at some point, you may need to hit that 120-minute rule. And that's when you might plan a break for lunch that you want to do that. You could, put something in for Splash Mountain at a certain time, right? Or you could plan your Space Mountain or your Seven Dwarfs Mine Train during that 120-minute resting period. So that's one way of working the whole Fast Pass system, is that, yeah, you might have to invoke that 120-minute rule, but if you do, there's other things you can do during that time. And it's good to have a plan for that going into it. So I don't know that this is taking away all the planning. I think it takes away the planning for the people that don't want to do the planning, and they can just kind of shoot from the hip during the day. But I think you can also have a pretty elaborate plan ready to go. It requires using your phone a lot more. Mykhailo, make sure you make sure you pack extra batteries
Mm-hmm.
because you're gonna burn up your phone. So
And speaking of that, I'm pretty sure I still have my fuel rod from before. You can buy fuel rods there, and they're definitely there for a reason, like Bryan said, because you might burn up your phone, and then you have no way of making fast passes. But I'm pretty sure I still have my fuel rod. And Bryan, correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't heard. At one point, they were going to charge you to exchange them. I don't. I feel like I haven't seen anything that has said that you have to pay to exchange these. So if you buy a fuel rod, and you can also buy these from, like, they're an online site. I can't remember exactly what they're called, but you can actually go online and buy these fuel rods and then bring them to the park, and they have stations where you actually exchange them for a new fuel rod that's fully charged. And I did that several times when I was in the parks. So it's really, really useful. But that's a thing. That's you're gonna have to do that. You're gonna have to bring a fuel rod, because at some point in the parks, you're gonna be low on battery, and it's gonna be like 5 p.m. Trust me, it's gonna happen. So that is something that you have to take into account when you go to the parks, because, like Bryan said, you're using your phone a lot more. And I already use my phone way too much, just like in general in life. So you're going to be using your phone so much more with a lot of what you're doing.
we've bought the Anchor brand on Amazon and had really good luck. We can get a couple of full day charges out of one of them. So we keep those around and use them a lot. Yeah, I've heard people complain about needing to use their phone a lot more. But as we go through this, I'll try to offer up a few more tips and tricks that I've seen along the way. And Mykhailo, I know you and I had talked about off air. We're going to try to do this as, this is Mykhailo's first run at it and first go. When he goes, he's going to get his first chance at using it. I have not used it. We've both done some research around it, watched some videos, and tried to figure out the best way to use this. So we're going to give you that. We're going to tell you exactly what we're thinking here, how we're going to do this. And then when Mykhailo returns, he'll let us know how it went, what he would do differently, all that good stuff, so that you guys can kind of see the process. Because I feel like if you're listening to us, listening to, that Far From Disney podcast, you want to know our point of view as to how this works when we're not able to be there every day. So I think this will help. I think this will hopefully help anyway.
Yeah. So like Bryan said, I'm going fairly soon. I think I'm like 32 days away from Disney, and already starting to plan stuff. I've been planning for about 3-4 months now, but so yeah, we're gonna go through. My first park day is Epcot when I go, and so we're gonna kind of take a look at the rides on these lists and kind of decide how we're gonna hit this park. And there's gonna be a couple things that we take into account. Favorite rides and stuff like that. It's definitely gonna be something taken into account. I feel like Bryan has some favorite rides and I have some favorite rides, and some of them might not match up. So we will kind of talk through those. Our days might be a little different. But the first thing I kind of want to talk about is hitting the rides right at the front of the park. And maybe this is something I bounce off of you, Bryan, because at the front of the park, we've got, honestly, I think the big one right now is Test Track in the front of the park, that I feel like can get really long waits, and I just don't want to wait in a long line for that Test Track. I think we've talked about that before. Soarin' can also have another really long wait. So that's the thing is do we try to run to these rides, or is it something where we're actually running to the back of the park to get to a ride like Frozen Ever After? And now talking through this, I'm kind of remembering, don't the countries open up later? Is that a thing?
That was a thing, but ever since the shutdown, everything opens at 11 o'clock, the whole park.
Yeah. So, so I can run to Frozen Ever After if I wanted to.
So can I ask, is this an early park entry day?
I believe in.
Oh, wait, every day is, isn't it?
Exactly. Every day is. So yeah, every park that we go to, we're going to be getting there early, and I believe it's only 30 minutes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I feel like that's not enough time. Give me an hour. Like, not to talk about other parks, but the other park that we're going to lets us get in an hour early, which would be great if we could do that for Disney. But I mean, still 30 minutes, getting 30 minutes ahead of people, that could possibly be 2 rides. Most likely it's probably going to be 1 ride, but hopefully it's like 1 big ride. So that's the idea. Is, I mean, if you think that Frozen Ever After is going to be a ride that you can run to and get on, and it's just going to have really long waits all day, then that would be the play. However, Frozen Ever After is one of the rides that you can pay for. So, and Ratatouille is also one, but most likely I'm going to be waking up early. I'll probably already be awake at that point. But I believe that you can book the virtual line for Ratatouille at 7 a.m. Is that correct?
Yeah, so this is where it gets interesting. You've got the 7 o'clock start for the virtual queue. You've got the 7 o'clock start for the fancy rides and Genie Plus.
Mm-hmm.
So, like when we were there back in March, I got up early. I went and did the virtual queue for Rise, and then came back to the room and said, "Hey, I got it." And everyone was kind of up and getting moving, and we were getting ready to go. I really think it's going to help you. Well, maybe not in this park as much, but if you're looking at buying Frozen Ever After right away, it might help you to buy that. Have Kristen buying that one while you're working on Remy's.
And so, and I was actually going to ask this: are you able to, so like if I bought a fancy ride, can I also book like a regular Genie Plus Lightning Lane at the same time?
Yes, you get being on property. You can book one at 7 a.m.
So, but like throughout the day, like, can I be booking? So it's like if I went and got a Lightning Lane for Soarin', at the same time, could I also go and book a Lightning Lane for Frozen Ever After, since it's a fancy ride? So can you do one fancy ride and one Genie Plus Lightning Lane at the same time?
So you're confusing in this a little bit. You got to think of them as separate items.
Mm-hmm.
The fancy rides don't affect what you're doing with Genie Plus.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to get, if you want to go and book Soarin' with Genie Plus, and that's the one you're tabbing is I'm booking that first at 7 a.m. Then you can do that. You can also go buy Frozen Ever After at that point. And remember, you get to buy 2 fancy rides per day, and that's it. You don't get to buy any more, whether you're park hopping or not. That's what you get. So that's where things get a little hectic in the morning when you've got 3 different things running at Epcot. And I have not heard how the fancy rides are selling. I know like over at Animal Kingdom or specifically at Hollywood Studios, Rise of the Resistance is selling out immediately every day as far as the fancy ride fast pass. So, it's you have to kind of prioritize how you're going to do things in the morning.
Yeah, so that's what I thought, is that like a lightning lane was a lightning lane, but they're both separate when it comes to booking them, so that they can be separate. And it's not like you can. I mean, there's only two that you can pay for, not through Genie Plus, and then you've got all the other Genie Plus ones. So it's not like you'd be doing that very often. But now that all of that, and of course this is why I'm doing this with you here, Bryan, because I need your knowledge to kind of plug up my gaps that I have. But talking through that and kind of understanding how to do this, let's decide. Let's make a couple of decisions here. So you can book. I mean, obviously, what I would do right away is get a virtual queue for Ratatouille. Whatever time that pops up as, is whatever time I'm getting, basically. And then after that, honestly, it's just kind of down to whether or not I want to. And maybe it's because this is how I've always done it, but I've always kind of started at the front of the park and then ended my day in the back of the park. And I feel like I kind of want to do that again. And also with Frozen being a paid ride, I believe those don't go as quick. Obviously, Rise, you've mentioned, sells out right away. But I do feel I've heard that even like further into the day, you'll be able to find them as paid options for attractions. And so I'm almost thinking kind of focus on the front of the park right away and get all that stuff done and just use your rolling fast pass option, depending on what time you get Ratatouille. If you get Ratatouille right in the front of the day, honestly though, even then, like even if I got Ratatouille right away, I'd probably go do that and enjoy that and be like, wow, this is amazing. But then just kind of get back to the front of the park and run through the park that way still. So I'm thinking what I'd probably do is I'd probably try to it's tough. It's between Test Track and Soarin' for me and stuff like that. Because I just don't want to have to wait in the line for Test Track.
So here's your hack. If you're going to be doing Genie Plus, if you're paying for it, you got to use it, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going to rope drop. You got to choose left or right. Which way are you going?
I think most of the time I go left.
Okay. So then we're rope dropping Test Track.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I prefer my time waiting to be outside of the hours, right? Mm-hmm. So you get a half-hour jump on some of the people coming into the park. So when you get up in the morning, you get your Remy's, you get your Frozen Ever After, you pay for them. If that's what you're going to do, if you're paying for those two, you pay for those two, whatever it is. And then you also book Soarin'. Mm-hmm. And you get it early, right away. So then you're rope shopping Test Track. Okay, so remember that when you have a lightning lane, you still have that hour window to return. Mm-hmm. So if you're walking in at 10:30 and you're running over to Test Track, you ride the ride, and let's say you're able to get Soarin' right away at 11 o'clock, you have until noon. So even if it takes you half an hour to get through it, you've still got plenty of time to get over there. Mm. Right? So, I mean, that's your hack. That's how I always did it with FastPass. You book one, you rope drop the other. Mm-hmm. Usually we booked Test Track, and then we would rope drop Soarin', but you can do it the other way around.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and that's actually probably exactly how we're going to do it. Just kind of getting that test track out of the way. Not that it's a bad ride anymore. It's definitely a good ride. It's just I don't want to wait in line that long for that ride, and I know that lines get long. And then of course, while I'm in Soarin', probably immediately, as soon as I tap in for Soarin', use my my lightning lane for that. Probably book in Living with the Land since I'm there already. I would gladly. I think I've used fast passes for Living with the Land before, just because it's one of my favorite rides there. And so Soarin' and Living with the Land always kind of go hand in hand. And this is kind of when that rolling fast pass starts. But I do
right, because you're able to book your next one as soon as it's 2 tap styles that you have to go through, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's after the second one that you can start booking the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, after you tap that second tap style, start looking for when you can get on Living with the Land. And the one trick that I've seen Molly using a lot is don't take the first answer you're given. Keep refreshing the screen,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll be given other options. And if you do it enough, you may get, like she'll show us on screen, she'll do it a few times, and essentially she'll get some after she's done there.
Yeah, so I think honestly from here, in my mind, I'm going to be kind of following. Is that kind of the idea? Is that you're just kind of following what you can get most readily? I know in the past I've been able to kind of like plan my day around where I'm booking fast passes, because you only really got 3, and then you got your 4th while you were there. But I guess that's kind of the thing now, really, is that now that it's a rolling fast pass, it's kind of like, oh, like now let's go here. Let's check this. It's funny. I almost said it the old way. Now let's go here, because you used to have to go to the ride, because that's where the fast pass station was. You used to go to the ride, put in your ticket, and get your paper fast pass. But you don't even have to do that anymore. You just whip out your phone, and figure it out. But I guess that's the thing, is that, and again, I haven't done this yet, so possibly it's different, but I'm guessing you can just kind of go in and peruse and see where those the Genie Plus lightning lanes are, and like what's most readily available, I guess. Is that?
And I would caution you on to be careful with that too, though, because you don't want to end up walking across the park for every ride.
That makes a lot of sense too. But my other thought is, with a lot of these, like I feel like the Seas with Nemo and Friends, I don't think I've ever used a fast pass on it, and I feel like most of the time when I wait in that line, it's like maybe a 10-minute wait, like maybe. The funny thing is I actually like that ride. Like I would not wait 45 minutes for it, but I enjoy it when I'm on it. And so it's like stuff like that. Mission Space. It's going to space. Would you give it a minute? I don't know why I just thought of that. But Mission Space, I don't think I'm going to do the red side, because I'm a little baby. Maybe I will. I don't know. I'll take my Dramamine that day and go on the intense side. I don't know. I've just had terrible experiences with that. But I'm taking somebody who's new to Disney, so she's going to want to go on everything. But I feel like even before Disney Plus, Mission Space really didn't have that long of lines.
Genie Plus,
Disney Plus, Genie Plus. Too many pluses.
So when you're over at Soarin', you want to look at, you've got imagination right there. You've got Seas with Nemo and Friends, and you've got Living with the Land. So you've got some to choose from. And you could even include Spaceship Earth in there if you wanted. You're not that far away from that stuff. It's when you're starting to go, we're at Soarin', we can get on Mission in Space, we could get on Frozen, whatever those distant type rides would be. You want to think about, do I really want to be walking across the park to do this? So that's where, the refreshing can really come in handy. Oh, I don't like my options right now. Oh, wait a minute. Now I've got something sooner. So that's the hack. That's the trick, right? The part I don't understand, and this is what I'm going to want to hear from you, is after you tap that second tap style, it's typically right as you're about to board. And I know you're getting thrown into the standby line, but typically at that point, you're not waiting very long. You're walking right on, right? And they always say, well, at that point you got to, I've gone on to my phone and I've found my next thing. And it's like, I get to that point and it's like, I don't have time for that. I don't know how these people are doing that.
And that's the thing, is that it must be like instantaneous. Like as soon as you tap your magic band, you must be able to pull out your phone and things show up right away. Because I would completely agree with you. Like as soon, and I'm all excited because I'm about to get on a ride. So I don't, maybe it's just because, again, we don't get to go that often. So like when we're about to get on a ride, we get kind of excited because like we've been waiting for this for over a year, under a year technically for me.
And really, does it matter if you ride the ride and then figure out the next stop, or if you're like frantically trying to figure it out as you're waiting to get on the ride? I mean, I think you're going to be fine either way.
I think so too. And I think it's a little more of like, and it's funny, Brian, I have to bring this up. I hope she doesn't listen to our podcast, and I'm betting she doesn't. But when I first tried to watch Molly, I don't know. Not that like I thought she was annoying, but like I didn't enjoy her the same way I enjoyed people like Tim, and all these other people that we watch. But slowly, and it's actually been the past couple days, and it's actually because I watched her do a Universal video, because I've been actually planning some Universal stuff. Now I've been watching her a lot more. She's very educational. And so I started out kind of like, about Molly. And now I would probably say that I'm a Molly fan. And I just wanted to tell you that because you always go on and on about Molly. And I was always just kind of like, Molly. But now I've been watching her videos every day. So
she knows her stuff. She's really good. She's a former cast member, and yeah, she really knows what she's doing. And that channel does these park challenges she has yet to lose. And there's a reason for that. Like, she knows what she's doing. And so I really enjoy watching her and getting the information that she provides. Tim is still uber entertaining. Mm-hmm. And, but Molly is really good. Really, really good.
But yeah, I've been watching those Molly episodes, those park challenges and stuff like that. They're all very cool, and I think that's kind of why we think it's like as soon as you tap your magic band, you got to be looking for your next lightning lane. I always want to call them fast pass, but
I still call it MGM.
Yeah, I love that shirt. But yeah, that's the thing, is that I feel like I've been watching those enough now where it's like, that's what I think you need to do. But I think you're right. Like, just get through the ride, and then at the end of the ride, be like, okay, like we've done that now. What's the next thing that we can do? But kind of talking about that, is just kind of having those times in between rides. And I know that for the most part, you kind of want to be going from ride to ride because you want to be using that rolling Fast Pass. But just kind of understanding that like you have that and you can utilize that. So if you see that you have gaps in there, like you mentioned, if you have gaps in there, you can fill them with paid lightning lanes. But also, I mean, like food, shopping, you can fill them with that too. So it's you're going throughout your day efficiently, and you're just making sure that like, and I know that I'm gonna try to sit around a little bit. I'm gonna try to take in the parks, but just kind of like filling every moment with what you can do and the most productive thing while you're going through the park. And it is still kind of when you're going ride to ride, and you're trying to like kind of like piece your day around rides. But it's just kind of understanding that you're probably going to have downtime in between these things, because who knows? Maybe I show up to Epcot and I have like 3 lightning lanes right away in the morning, and then I have a huge gap in between when I can use Genie Plus lightning lanes. So you just never know. But anyways, I did notice in Epcot, kind of talking about like the front of the park and the back of the park, the only 2 possible lightning lanes in the back of the park in the countries is Frozen Ever After and Ratatouille. So as you go through the back of that park, there's really nothing to kind of figure out, which I feel like is a good thing. I feel like just kind of being able to go through the back of the park and not just go from ride to ride, more going from country to country and like enjoying each country. So that makes me happy that like I won't, because if there's anywhere that I just naturally slow down at Disney World, it's Epcot back in the countries, which is probably why I like Epcot so much, because I'm able to slow down and look at the amazing attention to detail that they did in Italy and China and all of these countries. And so I should just listen to my own advice.
And watch the performers and eat all the food.
Yeah.
And do all the shopping.
So I think I'm happy about that. I'm happy that Genie Plus isn't kind of like pushing you throughout that whole park, because I feel like that can kind of happen with like happen a little bit with Fast Pass and with Genie Plus now, where it's just kind of pushing you from ride to ride. It's just being able to slow down and kind of understand your priorities of like what you want to do. And so I'm pretty happy that with Epcot in the back of the park, you have that ability that you're not just getting pushed by Disney Plus. You can kind of, because that's usually what I do, is I'll run around the front of the park, and then as soon as we start getting to the back of the park, that's like chill zone. And I love that, because most of the time, and actually I think we've talked about this before, Brian, we're going to talk about it again. Usually I will go left and start in Mexico, but I do kind of feel like I want to start in Canada. And we've definitely had this conversation, and people are probably listening to us saying, oh my God, here they go again. But I don't know. I'm back and forth on it, mainly because I like starting my country's frolic with a little bit of tequila. I just love that tequila bar.
I've always started with Canada and gone that way. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, another thing to bring up is that I have reservations at Le Cellier at 3:30, and they're a little earlier because we wanted to make sure that we got everything out of the way before watching the fireworks. Because I think before we had reservations during the fireworks, so we were able to kind of go back and adjust a couple things. We didn't even talk about the possibility of trying to get Space 220 as a walk up, which actually I kind of wanted to talk to you about now that we're talking about dining. But now that they have the lounge as reservations, are they even going to take walk ups?
If it might be something like they do with Olga's, where they'll put you on a virtual queue and they'll call you whenever they have time.
Yeah.
I would definitely, this is something that should probably be researched a little, see if we can find anyone that's tried this. But, I'm thinking your best bet, since you're planning on rope dropping test track, is to swing past the lounge and see if there's a virtual queue or something right away. Stop there first.
Yeah, and that was kind of the idea right away. But then once I heard that they were doing reservations for the lounge, then I was kind of like, uh-oh, that might be even harder to get a walk up for Space 220. But anyways, yeah. So Le Cellier also is at 3:30. So maybe I do start over at Canada, and maybe my frolic of the back of the park starts at Le Cellier. But then again, I think I'm going to be done with, or probably not actually. I was going to say possibly I'll be done with the front of the park before 3:30, but that actually might be kind of perfect timing. But yeah, that'll be exciting to be able to kind of start going through the countries right after I eat some awesome steak. So that'll be great. But yeah, I am happy that I don't really have to plan the back of the park. It's kind of more the front of the park that you have to deal with at Epcot.
Yep, and I did see a review posted online by somebody that they had done Genie Plus for the first time, and they did all kinds of rides all day long, had a blast, had fun, and they were thoroughly exhausted at the end of the day, and said, "We're not doing that again." I think that you should probably plan those first 2 hours to be your go crazy time and get as much done as you can. But then after you've hit those first 2 hours, it's time to slow down and enjoy some of the park, enjoy what else is there, and not go crazy. I think Epcot, as you were saying, is the best park for that. I think the other parks can be attacked different ways. I think Epcot is the best park for this style of an attack.
Yeah, I would agree. And kind of, I like to think back of my park day at Animal Kingdom the last time I went, and how much I was able to accomplish in my first 2 hours at the park because we had rope dropped. And I guess I'm just curious to see if it's going to be that same way, because I was able to get Flight of Passage, Navi River Journey, Kilimanjaro Safari, and Expedition Everest done in 2 hours. Granted, this is COVID crowds, so technically they were at 30%. So I guess I'm interested in seeing if I'm able to kind of accomplish kind of that same way, even if now with more crowds and Genie Plus, and only really getting in half an hour before everybody else. Even if I'm able to do 2 rides right away, and they're kind of like walk-ons, I feel like that would still be kind of a win.
Yeah, and it'll depend on what the crowds are like. Being that you're there at the end of January, I don't know that you're going to have all that big of crowds. So I would think you'd be okay and be able to knock off most of that stuff in your first 2 hours with using Genie Plus. I don't see why not. And this is where using your phone more than you would like comes in, right? The one part in all of this planning that I keep forgetting to talk about is the tip board. The tip board is, it's part of that Genie piece that we had talked about. and they're going that's like the piece you're going to want to use the most, where it's going to tell you what the wait is and what the next Genie Plus time available is, or sorry, Lightning Lane time. And you can see, what your wait would be if you choose to use a Lightning Lane there or not. And like one of the things that I tell people is, don't pay for Everest. It's not worth paying for. That line does not get long. It may get long. I've stood in it for 45 minutes in the past. And that queue is well worth walking through for sure. But more recently, 10 to 15 minutes a lot of times is what you'll find.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's really good to watch the times and see what the wait times are doing versus when you can get that Lightning Lane. And here's my last tip. Touring plans. I know I've told you about it. I've talked about what they do in the past. They are really good at it. They know the actual wait times. They've constantly got people in the park, with also actual users reporting what the actual wait times are versus what Disney's posting. Mm-hmm. So using them in tandem with that tip board to find out where you want to be and how you want to do things can save you money and time. So, you might get over to Everest and say, well, or you might be in the park and say, let's buy Everest, and you're not going to need to. Now, Flight of Passage, probably going to need to, but that one as well fluctuates in their wait times. So you want to use touring plans to find out what that's like. Disney will give you an idea of what that is, kind of like touring plans does. I don't know how much I trust them yet because they have more interest in getting crowds to flow the way they want them to. Mm-hmm. Touring plans is just, here's the data. So that's my last and final trick for you.
Yeah, and that all definitely makes a lot of sense. And I think I know I'm pretty excited to put all my knowledge and everything that I'm excited to do to the test and kind of see how this all works out. I feel like it's gonna make Fast Pass Lightning Lane fun again. Not that it wasn't fun, but it's gonna be a little bit more spur of the moment type thing where it's like you can definitely plan how you're doing stuff, but it's a little bit more like while you're at the parks, like that's kind of what you're doing. And I always loved kind of looking at wait times and looking at when we could get fast passes, and trying to formulate exactly what we're going to be doing in that hour based on that. So I'm excited to do that, and I think it's going to be fun to do. But we want to hear from you guys. We want to hear what you guys think of Genie Plus. Have you been to the parks? Have you used Genie Plus? Let us know. Did you like the old Fast Pass system? Did you like the old Fast Pass system, the paper Fast Pass system? I know that was so far that was my favorite. So hopefully this new Genie Plus system, Lightning Lane, will be pretty fun.
Yeah, definitely come on out to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Let us know what you guys are thinking with Genie Plus and the Lightning Lane selections. I think it's a system that's taking a little getting used to, even though it's a lot like what we've used with Fast Pass. But let us know your thoughts. Mykhailo's going to be going pretty soon. He could use all the tips he can get. So please come on out. Let us know what you think. And to that end, don't forget we're looking for people to come on the show and give us your trip report. We love to live vicariously through others on their trips. So if we can get some of you to come on out, tell us about your trips on the show, that would be awesome. Let us know at the email, milesfrommainstreetpodcast@gmail.com. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's all we got for you guys tonight. We'll see you next time on Miles from Main Street.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please rate us on iTunes and subscribe. Email us at milesfrommainstreetpodcast@gmail.com with any thoughts, and visit us on Facebook under Miles from Main Street. We'll be bringing more to you weekly and look forward to talking to you then.
Until next week, remember,
Some live close,
but most of us don't.
so let's talk about it.